Hello, everyone. My name is Ricky Thakrar, and I'll be leading today's webinar. And we're going to focus on managing a project in Zoho Projects, and mainly through the reports and analytics sections. Not only will we look at reports inside Zoho Projects, but also the integration with Zoho Analytics. And just to help you get started, show you some tips to get going on the analytics side. All right, so go ahead and outline our agenda. So the webinar will be about an hour long, and during the webinar, you are free to ask questions. I'll get to those at the end, but there is a way to type in questions and chat to me directly. So, if you have something that pops up, feel free to just ask the question. I'll address it when we get to the end. So what we'll do is we'll talk about a little bit of project management background, give you a few stats, and then an overview of Zoho projects. The overview will be short because the objective of this webinar is really to focus on Gantt charts and syncing with Zoho Analytics and looking at reporting from a project manager point of view rather than the end user. But for those of you who are not familiar with Zoho projects, I'll spend a few minutes just giving you an idea of what the application entails, and there's plenty of other webinars and videos available just strictly focused on using Zoho projects. Okay, so the majority of our time will be spent on the Gantt chart, resource utilization, and syncing with analytics and looking at sample reports and dashboards, right? So all from the project manager point of view. And so, one of the things you have to think about is you can come up with a really good project vision, an idea, and a list of everything to do, but executing it is where the challenge is. And nowadays, the execution is more based on numbers. So your analytics are a key part of executing your vision. So you're basically managing your project through the numbers. And so when you want to turn vision into execution, it is highly recommended you use project management software. While tools like Excel can be used to manage projects, you need everything in one place. People are looking to have not only the tasks in one place, but also there are different documents and files. There are a way for the team members to communicate and collaborate with each other. And then, of course, keep track of time, keep track of schedules and delays in the schedule, due dates, and not have to navigate around. So in order to do this, we're looking for an application that combines all of these things together so that you can deliver the project on time, within the budget. There's budget tracking available. And then as a manager, you're optimizing the project based on live analytics through the project. Okay, so that's what we are highly recommending here. And this is a very popular tool. It's one of the most popular applications in the Zoho suite. As you know, Zoho suite comprises of about 45 different applications, and there are some more on the way for 2020. So it's just going to increase up to 50 plus. But this is one of our most requested applications when it comes to requesting a demo or adding a trial and testing it out. So some trends that we're seeing in project management. So if you look back at 2018, we have a pretty high percentage of people in enterprise meeting their project goals, right? Nearly 70%. And we are also seeing a trend that more than half are within the original budget. So those are good stats. However, the issue is that people don't understand the value of project management, and only 22% of the organizations were using actual project management software. Without project management software, you don't have access to what we call KPIs, key performance indicators. Without access to the KPIs, how do you manage the project? Well, you're going to spend a lot of time losing productivity by manually collaborating with your different team members in order to optimize the project itself. When you have live analytics, live time tracking, live Gantt charts, things like that, that don't have to be updated manually, then you have access to these different KPIs, and then you use that information to to actually complete the project. Okay, so most requested features that you see when you're looking for project management applications, all of these that Zoho projects will have: file sharing, time tracking, email integration, Gantt charts, and budget management. Okay, so to me, this was a surprisingly low number, that of the companies evaluated on Wellington, that only 22% were actually using project management software itself. considering there's a lot of different tools on the market that are available. So if you're using Zoho CRM and you're doing client-based projects, Zoho Projects will integrate with the CRM, and so that you can add a project for an account once it's closed, right? Or once it's in the pipeline. If you're using Zoho Projects and Zoho Desk, you can turn desk tickets into project bugs and project issues. So there's an integration there. If you're using Zoho WorkDrive or Zoho Docs, the documents can be created and managed, but linked to a specific project in our database. If you are using, in our case, Zoho Analytics, you can then grab all the data from Zoho Projects and build a nice project dashboard inside Analytics. So all these different integration points is why we recommend in the Zoho ecosystem to just use the Zoho apps, so that because they all talk together, and that makes the departments in your company a little bit more transparent and more accountable. So going with the trend of increasing focus on data analytics and numbers, we have this thing of the saying of what gets measured gets managed, right? In the kind of the previous period, we're thinking like what gets managed is what can be measured. But if you think of it from the opposite point of view, is it's all numbers based, right? So we measure the numbers and then we manage the project. And then we can make decisions. We can work with our team, determine the team size, and find the right people. So now we're gonna go and spend 5 minutes on Zoho Projects overview. Okay, so again, this webinar is gonna focus on the reporting and analytics, but for those of you who are not used to using Zoho Projects just yet, I want to make sure that you understand the general outline of the application. So project management is built all around a list of tasks. Those tasks are all placed in subcategories. A large overarching task is considered a milestone. Then you can break those tasks into task lists, and then you have different to-do items, which we call tasks and subtasks. And then those can be linked together so that the tasks can be dependent on each other, right? Task 1 must be completed before task 2 can start, or task 1 has to start before task 2 can start, or these different dependencies we'll go over today: finish to start, start to finish to finish, and I'll talk more about that. Along with dependencies, when you have tasks and the project is live, things can get delayed, you can run into roadblocks. So we have issue tracking, we have the ability to calculate end variance, we have the ability to calculate the critical path and the baseline, and these are all the different features that I'll go over today. As an end user, you're mainly going to look at the tasks that are assigned to you, and you can open up a task, and you can track your time, you can add notes, you can add documents, you can communicate with an open forum with different team members, you can add different dependencies. Maybe the task will be eventually split into subtasks during the project, and then those will have dependencies on each other. And then you can also track your budget. So that's basically what the end user is doing, is working within each task. The task is the object that is, it's got all these different features for the end user to update. The manager is going to be looking at the dashboard and the reports, making sure we're within budget. What is the rate of task closure? Is anyone behind on their work? What is happening week to week? Who are my top performers, etc. And that's all done on the dashboard. And then inside Zoho Projects, there's some other modules as well. Besides just the task management, you can also store your documents. You can link with Zoho Books and Zoho Invoice for expensing and invoicing for your contractors. You have an open forum to discuss. You can create a client page where your client can access the project, make updates, or upload a document that you've requested. It also works with our chat system, so you'll have a live chat within the application and then the reporting. All right, so that was my quick overview of Zoho Projects. We don't want to spend too much time on the different features and spend more time here on the Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart goes back many, many years. It's a very traditional way of tracking a project. And so the Gantt chart inside Zoho Projects, you can see all of the tasks that I just showed you. Rather than seeing the list form, you see a visual representation with the due dates, with the completion percentages. It shows the timeline of the project itself. You can see who is responsible, or what we call the task owner. You can see how the tasks are dependent on each other, and You can also, the system will show you the critical path, the baseline, the slack, the slippage, all of that, which we will go over during this webinar. So as a project manager, I can basically manage this entire application just from the Gantt chart, because every day I can log in. The Gantt chart is color coded, so I can see, if there is a task being worked on, it will show me through the color coding that this task is in progress, this task is completed. If there is a delay, there'll be dotted lines showing that things are removed from the original due dates or they're started late. I can easily see who is responsible for everything. I can even change the task dates. I can move tasks around. I can change dependencies. So I can do all of that just from the report itself. And that's what makes this so convenient, is I'm not having to navigate around the entire application. I can just work within the Gantt chart itself. And the Gantt chart in Zoho Projects looks like any Gantt chart you've seen before. And this is auto-created for you. So when you create a new project, the Gantt chart is created for you. You can look at the Gantt chart on a global level, which means you can look at it for all projects, or you can look at it on a project by project level, right? So it kind of depends on how your company is organized. And from there, on the left-hand side, you see all of your tasks. And on the right-hand side, we're going to go over all these different features. But from a quick look, I can easily tell that this task is more than halfway complete, that Eduardo is working on. I can see that there's a dependency between two tasks, thanks to these the arrows, right? So I can see the baseline here, that's in gray. So there's already some things that I can kind of determine without even knowing all of the features, because it's pretty easy to read. So let's start with dependencies. So one of the most important aspects of a project management system is that tasks get completed in the right order, not only just on time, right, but in the right order. So you have to make sure the tasks are not only planned out, but what has to start first before the next one can start, or what has to finish before the next one can start. So let's go over these 4 categories. Zoho Projects offers all 4 of the task dependencies. So finish to start, which is labeled as FS inside Zoho Projects. It means that the next task can't begin until the predecessor is completed. So in Zoho Projects, we call them successors and predecessors. So that's the terminology you'll see in our application. And when you choose a successor or predecessor, you have to label it FS, SS, FF, etc. And that's basically how you actually put it into the product itself. And this can be done on the Gantt chart even after you've created all your task lists, okay? And if there's any way that this is not doable, the system will not, let you create a dependency that it knows is just simply not doable. So it will block you from creating any errors like that. So in this case, right, the example is if you're publishing something, you can't do a review until a draft is completed. So the first one has to, the second one cannot begin until the first one is actually complete, okay? So that's how they're dependent. So you cannot start them at the same time. Versus the next one is the 2 tasks can actually be worked on concurrently as long as the first one has started, right? So in our case, if peer review has started, the manager can also review, right? Because he doesn't have to wait for the peers to review. They can review at the same time, as long as in this case, the peer review begins, the manager gets the green light, let me do my review. So we call it start to start. Then we have start to finish as well. So this one is saying that the dependent task can't be completed until the first one is about to begin, right? So in our case here, publishing the journal can't be completed unless the binding starts. And the last one, finish to finish, is that a task can't be completed until the other one has finished. For example, the error connection can't be completed until the manager review is finished, okay? So those are your 4 types. The most popular is gonna be finish to start and start to start. And those are the 2 main ones we see people use just in our experience. The system will default to FS, so make sure that you change it as you create the dependencies. So what I'm gonna do here is go to Gantt chart. Now, when we're in the reporting section, we get all these different types of reports. And so we just click on Gantt chart. And then here you have the option of milestone or chronology Gantt chart, right? So it's more of a what visually like better. The chronology doesn't show the milestone, it's just all the list of every single task, versus the milestone, of course, we'll break it down per milestone, right? And the milestones are in red. So it just depends how you prefer to look at it. Now from here, the first thing we talked about, right, was these different dependencies. So if I click on a particular task, I can tell that this one has a dependency because of the arrow. It tells me there's a predecessor, right, finish to start. And I can add additional. So there could be multiple dependencies going on here, and then I can add the successor. So if I want to add the successor, I can grab a task. Let's just grab a random task here. And if I want to set the dependency, as I said, it defaults to finish to start because it's the most popular, but you can choose the 4 dependencies, okay? And you can do it right here on the Gantt chart itself. And that's it. And then those are going to be linked together. As you can see here, the line is drawn. You can also do it from the task list itself, but as a project manager, this is really where you're going to stay as much as you can. So it's nice to just have that work being able to be done right on the Gantt chart. And I'll look at it from a chronology point of view, it's just a list of tasks. Some people like this better. Easily can tell which tasks are on their way to be completed. I can even open up the task completely and work on it too, right? So if I click on the task here, I can look at the more information, and it gives me a message here, right? So there's a dependency here, so I can scroll down and take a look at what the dependency is. So it gives you a more filtered version of the Gantt chart just for this particular dependency, and I can even see the logged hours. So you can deep dive into it, but you can just continue to stay on this page all of the time. So that is the dependency, right? So you can easily view those in the system. Next thing we want to look at is the critical path. Okay, so we've seen the dependency. Let's look at critical path. So another feature of the Gantt chart is something that's kind of an automatic reporting tool. The system is going to just look at all your tasks and figure out which ones are going to drastically affect the project, which is basically because of this particular task, the entire project deadline will be affected. Or because of the dependency in the series of tasks, the entire project deadline will be affected. Because there are things in your project, like maybe reviewing material or training material that needs to be created, where it's not going to affect the entire deadline of the project, versus there's a deliverable that if that particular one is delayed, it's going to affect everything, right? So it automatically knows, even though you can label it as a high priority task, the system is going to look at the Gantt chart and figure out what those items are, and will highlight them for you. And so in reality, of course, things can get delayed and moved around. People get sick, people aren't at work, people reassign tasks. And so this also can be another way to use it as a benchmark, right? And to make sure that your actual progress is going as the benchmark says as well, right? And then Slack is a part of the critical path. So if it's a critical item that, let's say, is due 5 days before the end of the project, there could be a 5-day Slack there, because technically you could delay it up till the last day, because not due on the last day, is due 5 days before. So 5 days is acceptable for this particular task to be overdue. After that, you're going to be in trouble because it's going to cause the entire delay. So in the Gantt chart on the top right, you can add critical path and add Slack. And that's what it looks like. It's going to highlight the critical path in red for you, right? And the Slack is determined by dotted lines. If you notice, this task here is not dependent, does not have a dependency tied to a critical path, so it's going to be given some slack, right? Because the one above that has a longer period of work. So that's the one that can cause the delay. The other one, as long as it's finished right when the longer one finishes, it won't affect anything. So you get a few days of slack here, and then this is the actual path itself. So let's turn on critical path, and just got to go here, and boom, it's turned on. Okay. So I can see this task is highlighted in red. It becomes a critical path. So I like looking at it from this point of view, right? And I can easily see over here this dependency, because this can't start unless this one's finished, right? Because of the type of dependency. And this is the one, so that is going to delay the entire date of the project. So if this particular one is delayed because of the dependency, this is also part of that pathway that's going to cause a delay in the entire project. And I can see that quickly by just checking a box. Okay, and I can see it in the milestone as well. It's just broken down a little differently because it's now broken down into the milestones themselves. And this particular task is in the third milestone, right? And it's connected to a task up in the first milestone. So those are very, very critical items, okay? The Slack are the dotted lines, right? So it tells you here, this particular one, like coming up with the strategy, there's no dependencies here. There's got a huge slack on this one. Like it can get delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, but it's not gonna really change the day of the project. We've got many, many, many days to figure out on this particular one, okay? So hiding behind the Gantt chart, you can actually roll this out, is a detailed table with some more information, okay? And we're gonna go over that as well. So over here, it tells you some information such as the duration, the due date, the start date, etc. So you don't, again, have to open the task. It's just hidden right behind the Gantt chart, right? So that's critical path. The next thing is the baseline. This is also on the Gantt chart. So now we're seeing task owner, task completion, we're seeing dependencies, we're seeing critical path, we're seeing Slack. Let's add one more, is the baseline. The baseline is your original plan, right? It is when you first created that project plan, and you need to know, are you on that, how close are you to that original design, right? So in gray, it will outline your original design, because again, in reality, things get delayed, people get sick, people aren't there, things have to get reassigned. So as things move around the project, maybe you want to see it on top of the original plan, right? So you can see, okay, so there's this much variance going on from my original plan. Call it baseline. Slippage is a calculation, and variance is a calculation. Slippage means difference between baseline start date and current start date. End variance means that there's a delay in the completion. So see, slippage is all about start, and end variance is all about end, right? So slippage, baseline start, current start. So that's how you've changed the start date. End variance is all about completion. So the baseline finish and the current end or current finish. So that's very, very simple to see. So over here, we can turn on the baseline. You can actually have multiple baselines. Why would you want multiple baselines? Well, in January, you have a baseline. And then in February, everything has moved around. So you want to create a baseline for February too, because that's like really the new path that the project is on. So then in March, you can look at your January baseline, then you can look at your February baseline, right? Have we moved much? Are we still on target with the February baseline? That, that would show good results, or kind of good results on the project itself. So you can have multiple baselines, and it tells you the date that that particular baseline was on. You can delete it, you can add another one, you can compare two baselines. It's a pretty cool feature for the once a project is live. And then you have slippage and variance. So again, going with this table that's hidden behind here, if I roll this out, it's calculating here the baseline, finish, and end variance, right? So let's pick this particular task. It's called inbound sales strategy, right? So I roll my Gantt chart over. I take a look here. Now that my baseline is here, right? Because this actually started here and has moved to the 11th, right? So the original start date of this task was the 6th. It was the baseline start. That's what I put in when I created the project. Now it's moved to the 11th, okay? So slippage 5 days, very easy to calculate. The end variance is just the difference between the end dates, and that's also here, right? You've got one date here and one date here, and if I just, again, roll this out, I've got one date here and one date here. Now that's a difference of, looks like 6 days, right? But why does this show 4 days? Because in Zoho projects, when you create a shift calendar, I switched off Saturday and Sunday. We're not working Saturday, Sunday. So because of that, it's minusing 2 days. So instead of showing 6, it's showing 4. So if you happen to turn off availability for Saturday, Sunday for your users, then of course the end variance will be off by a couple of days if it hits the weekend, which it does, because 18th and 19th is a weekend, and that's where the 4 days came from. All right, so baseline and critical path we've covered. So as a project manager now, you see how simple it is. You log into Zoho Projects, click on the Gantt chart, look to see what's going on for the day. Open up a task as needed, look at the details. If you need to break down a task further because a user has posted a comment or a note or is discussing a task in the forum, you can change the date. You literally have to just pick up a task and roll it with the dragging your mouse. So I'm going to grab this task, and that's it, right? I moved it 3 days to the right. It's as simple as that. If I want to add a new task from the table, I can do that right here. If I want to filter the table, filter the Gantt chart, I can do that here. If I want to switch off critical path or baseline, I can do that here. If I want to get the details of a particular task list, I can click on the task list. If I want to click on the particular milestone, I can click on the milestone itself. So you have all those different options, and you can just really work off the report. So that's how important it is to understand all these different aspects of the Gantt chart. Next, we'll go into resource utilization. Just spend a couple minutes here. This one's very straightforward. This is all about work hours and free hours, right? So based on availability of the team, it just looks like a seesaw. There's green, red, and blue. Blue means you're averaging the right allocation of resources to the time available. Green means you're in the positive, red means you're in the negative. So it's very easy to read. All this is telling me is that for open tasks, these users are available for 40 hours because I've given them a shift of 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 on the user side. I've given them a shift. I've given them Saturday, Sunday off, so it knows they're available for 40 hours a week. And it's going to look at all the different tasks and what they're working on. So I can see here from the resource utilization, I'm going to remove the filter for open tasks. Let's just look at all tasks, right? So I can see here, Ron was given 29 hours of work, right? That's obviously a lot for a single day. And so what it does, it's minusing the 8 hours, and that's where you're getting your 21 from, right? So if I want to investigate what's going on, then I want to pull open the 4 tasks that he's working on, right? And see why did that many hours get logged? Well, because, right, if you add all this up, I've been over allocated him too much work. So what would I do in this case? Because I've given him 29 hours of work. Well, maybe I want to change the date of some of these, or in this case, maybe I want to change the amount of hours we're going to dedicate to this particular thing, right? Let's just say we want to only dedicate 3 hours. Well, he's already done some hours of work on it anyway. I notice that seesaw now moved to the other side in green, saying that allocation is okay. Maybe I want to reassign the task to someone else, right? Because this particular user is always in the red. Maybe I didn't fairly realize how to distribute the work. Let me move it to someone else. So it's really useful in terms of the resource utilization. So this is all about how much work your users have on their plate. Now, before we jump to Zoho Analytics, there's a few other things in here. So you have basic task reports. This is what we're going to dive into on Zoho Analytics and kind of see how much more advanced you can get. But if you just want a general list of milestones, tasks, tasks by owner, really asking the what, right? What is the status? What is the priority? How many tasks? Things like that, just looking for simple totals. It's all pre-made in here, and you can just change the chart type if you want. But in Zoho Analytics, you can definitely deep dive a lot more. And then we also have this planned versus actual, which is based on the logged hours. Now that is really going to be over here with the budget. So when we create a budget, I'm going to go into edit project. When we create a budget, there's a few things that we need to set up, right? And so it's going to ask you, do you want to do a budget based on dollars or hours, right? So you saw the resource allocation was done by hours. It can also be done by billable billable dollars as well. So you choose it based on amount or hours. If you notice, my budget currently is based on dollar amount, right? So we've planned 81,000. The budget was 80. So far, only 1,600 because we just started, and it's projecting another 51,000, right? If I want to see it from a different point of view, then I'm not going to do it on the amount. I'll do it on the hours, right? And now I have to decide how many hours are dedicated for this project. Let's just say 1,000 hours, right? Now quickly that will change. I allocate 1,000, but we planned 1,500, right? So then I might want to change that budget around. The system will then also look at what's been actually logged and what it's going to, based on what people are doing, because people could be finishing their work faster, it's automatically going to calculate your forecast for you as well, right? So your forecast is actually going to be lower than what's been planned. Things are seeming to happen on time or faster, Okay, so that's your budget there. The true budget reporting is done in Zoho Analytics, and we're going to show you that as well. Because budget can be very, very important if all the billable hours are going to be logged into the timesheet. But Zoho Analytics is really where you can do a deeper dive and get information about the cost for the client or cost per client, or build an entire budgeting dashboard per project. And that's why we want to focus on Zoho Analytics, since there's not too many budget reports available inside Zoho Projects out of the box. Okay, so the second piece of this webinar is Zoho Analytics. So when we talk about analytics, we talk about comparing things, comparing projects with each other, right? Comparing task owners with each other, comparing project managers with each other. We're looking at rates. We're looking at, or rates could be like resource utilization, right? So hourly rates versus dollar rates versus percentage rates. You have trends. How many tasks are being closed on an average per day between project 1, 2, and 3 for quarter 1? That's a trend, right? And that's something that you can calculate in Zoho Analytics. Top performers, this is something relative. Top 5 performers, top 10, bottom 5, bottom 10. You can just grab relative figures like that and get a list inside Zoho Analytics. And of course, the budget charts. So this is very important to really get the true value of data that you're populating into Zoho projects. We highly recommend the analytics piece. Those of you who are on Zoho 1 or CRM Plus, you already have both of these tools. So you should be using both of them. For those of you who are exploring projects for the first time, then of course, try out projects first, get used to it, and then you can always add on analytics at a later time. But Zoho 1 and CRM Plus users, you have both of these tools. So let's start using them and getting some value out of the software that we've already purchased. So someone actually just asked, can you see resource allocation across more than one project? So if you go into global reports, you'll see resource allocation. Oops, go back to global reports. Okay. All right, so here, what I can see is across all projects currently. Okay, so because it's now in the home section under global reports versus in sales plan 2020 under the reporting section here, right? So you see this is a different reporting section than the one under global. To further answer your question, in Zoho Analytics, I'm also going to show you resource utilization. Again, just what it looks like on inside the other app. So those of you who are using the two apps separately, you will have to do the integration. And the integration is done inside Setup, and you click on the Zoho Marketplace, and you can see Zoho Analytics. If you have Zoho 1 or CRM Plus, this is already done for you. But you can go ahead and take a look at what is being synced. You don't have to sync all of your projects, but you can, okay? You don't have to sync all of the data, but you can. The main thing here to know is that it syncs every 3 hours. So every 3 hours, it gathers all the data, pushes across our servers, and updates our analytics database, okay? And then also gives you a link to the particular workspace. So the other thing is under global reports, you'll add Zoho Analytics right here too. So this is going to be a new thing that gets added. You click on this, and it will pull up your dashboard. And then you also have a quick link to go into Zoho Analytics. And here's all of your data. So those are your integration points. Now, if you've already created a CRM workspace, for example, so you've already done like Zoho CRM Analytics, my advice to you is to go to Create, and you're going to go to Import Data, and then you're going to go into Project Management and grab it from here. Okay, so a couple of things to go over. Zoho 1 and CRM Plus users, what I'm explaining to you is already done for you. Those of you who are using Zoho projects and want to use Zoho Analytics, or are using either one for the first time, then you can set it up through projects. For those of you who are already using CRM analytics, it just makes sense to combine the projects data with the CRM data. So instead of going to projects, clicking on marketplace and adding Zoho Analytics, go into Zoho Analytics and just import the project database into the CRM workspace. Because what happens is now all the 20, 30 tables from CRM are now also in the same database as all the 20, 30 tables from Zoho Projects. So the advantage for you now is that you can build additional query tables to join between these two products. So now you're getting sales data and projects data cross-reference. If you have Zoho One, again, this is already done for you. You can click on the database. You'll have access to all the tables from all of the apps. So that is, again, if you have a question on that, that was hard to follow, just let me know. But again, if you're already using analytics, just go into your current workspace and just click create, import, go to project management, and just grab it from here. It makes a lot more sense and is a lot easier since they're going to be in a single workspace. Another really neat trick in analytics is, let's say you don't want to play with your live data, but you do want to mess around with Zoho projects and kind of see what you can do. Well, you can go into featured samples. So just go to analytics, go to featured samples, go to project management, and just grab this. This is a demo workspace. You can play around with the data. It doesn't affect anything live. You can build reports. Think of it as a sandbox. Even though it's not your live data, you can figure out how to do things. And then you can flip from your actual live workspace to your sample workspace. So if you see here today on the webinar, I'm in a sample workspace. Anything that I do in here doesn't affect anything in my real workspace where my real data resides. So those are some ways to get used to this. The best way to learn Zoho Analytics and what we're going to focus on today is completely reverse engineer all of the pre-built tools. Because when you start reverse engineering everything, you get an idea of how it was built in the first place, and then more and more information, more and more experience will be equivalent to you being able to learn how to create your own reports and dashboards. We have done a lot of homework for you. There's more than 50 reports made. There's already 6, 7 dashboards made. There are already 50 plus aggregate formulas added for you. And there are already 20 or so query tables pre-built, and you can even see the SQL, you can even see the SQL script that was how the query table was built. So you can again reverse engineer the query table to add or join additional data. So all that's there. So just stick with the template and it will make your life a lot easier. When you first enter Zoho Analytics, and I recommend this with any tool, is you look at the data map. So from a database perspective, everything in all Zoho apps is just stored on tables that are joined with IDs, right? So everything has an ID, every single line item, that's your primary key, and is joined on their across 2 different tables. So every project is linked to a task. Every task will have a project ID, right? Just like every account has a contact, every contact will have an account ID. That's how things are linked. So these are all the tables that come in from Zoho Projects. These are the query tables that we've built for you. You can see some really helpful tables here, like there's a budgeting query table that's built. There's a planned versus spent budgeting table built, query table built. There's a burn down calculation built. There's a projected revenue built. So you can just grab these tables and take a look at what the SQL script was to join that. I recommend clicking on model diagram. Now, what this does for those of you who are more technical, it actually shows you how everything's linked together. This is a really helpful way in general to see the backend kind of structure of the Zoho applications. So this gives you a data map or a database map, and it tells you how the tables are joined. This is actually really, really helpful when building the different reports. The best part is though, when you grab a primary table like tasks, you can just say bring in all of the joined tables. The system knows what all is joined to tasks. You can just automatically add it all in. But when you're building your own query tables, then you need to know how the relationships work. And so that's why this data map is super helpful. All right, let's open up the overview dashboard. This is something that's pre-built. Everything is going to pull in from Zoho Projects and be available right here. So one thing you don't get in Zoho Projects is a fully customizable dashboard. You get those simple widgets like the budget widget, the open task widget, things like that when you log in, but there's not much you can do in terms of editing and customizing it. So if you really want a true project dashboard, then you want to go into analytics and build it there. And you can even filter it per project. You can filter it per date. You can create your own filters. But here, from a company point of view, I can just see how many projects are actively being worked on, right? Actively completed. And you see here, planned versus actual duration. Are things happening on time? Well, clearly, things are happening a lot more delayed. Each project has been delayed, right? So I can see it from a project point of view. Again, here I can see build hours logged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Don't have time to go into every single one, but you can kind of get an idea of what this means. So there's a project overview. The other one I want to show you is the task dashboard. Right, so this is going to break down all the different task lists and tasks. Again, you can do it per project, you can do it per owner, or you can do it from a company point of view, right? So this gives you a quick idea of what's going on. When I talked about how we have pre-built formulas, for example, things like if you go into the reporting section, and let's just grab a quick report. And if you go to edit, these are what we call aggregate formulas. They'll have the pound sign with the sigma logo. These are calculations that are done for you. How many open tasks, how many closed tasks, open task percentage versus closed. Right, so you can tell all of these and how they're calculated. All you have to do is edit the aggregate formula, and it tells you what happens, right? So this is the count of tasks that have a 0%, right? So it is a formula, right? It's going to tally up how many tasks, but it's done for you. Now you can use that on your report. You don't have to actually calculate on the report. The field itself is pre-calculated for you to transfer over. So on every table, what I recommend starting with is looking at the pre-built formulas, okay? Get an idea of what is available out of the box before you start spending time making things that we've probably already done for you, because that the whole point of these pre-integrations is that we've done a lot of the homework for you. So when I was talking about analytics, the first thing I said was we should be comparing things, right? So when you look at the overview dashboard, you can compare projects, right? Here are the projects side by side: a marketing project, framework project, analytics project. I can do a comparison for planned versus actual, but I'm now comparing these two side by side. Right, so this is what we mean by comparison. When we go into, let's go into the Milestones Dashboard, let's just take a look at this one. All right, so now we're comparing owners who have ownership of milestones. What is in progress? What is overdue? What is upcoming, right? So now we're comparing users across from each other. We're looking at projects and how many milestones, and then the status of those milestones. So now, as the owner of the company, how many live projects do we have? How many milestones in those projects? Who has the most? And how many are completed? And I can dive further and further into this. Okay. So that was just a very quick overview of the dashboards. We're going to go further now into some of this information. Okay. So let's go into, as I mentioned, something like rates. So we're going to pull up a pre-made chart. We talked about resource utilization, right? So let's grab resource utilization by month. So we saw resource utilization in Zoho Projects. Looks like that little seesaw kind of report, right? Like this. It's also available over here, right? Because that same data is over here. So this is what it looks like. I don't know really what this means, so I can go into edit design. Now I study the chart. All right, so there is a query table here called resource utilization details. If I want more information about that table, I'm able to grab it from the data side. It automatically knows, again, what tables are pre-joined. So you can say include tables. It'll bring in all the tables that it knows can join it, and it'll auto-join them for you. Otherwise, I take a look. Okay, so I'm grabbing date, and I'm grabbing the resource utilization rate. Well, how did it figure that out? Well, let's see what the formula says. All right, so, and now I can tell you that it's looking for looking for the count of, so in this case, let's see, resource utilization date, over the count of derived utilization details 100 times. If resource utilization details ask ID is null, otherwise derived utilization date over count. Okay, so it's looking at the rate, the date over the number of actual records, and that's how it's getting your percentage rate, right? Because one of them was, as you can see here again, so we can ignore this piece really, right? It just says if it's not there, then don't bring it in. Otherwise, grab the resource utilization date and divide it by the count of how many records are in resource utilization date itself in the table. And if you want to grab that table, you can always go back to the data. But since that rate is pre-calculated, I can see it over here. Now, what I can do is I can think about maybe I want to see this instead by the owner, right? So I'm thinking, let me go ahead and add the different owners here. Okay, so now the owners got added, but this is not really something that makes sense to me. I want to see it in a different visual. So I'm going to go over here and try this curve. Okay, that one looks a little bit better, but it's showing a lot longer of a date period. So let me go ahead and go to the filter and change the date, and I can see everything really happen in Q1 and Q2. So I can kind of just grab Q4, and in Q1. Okay, so a little bit better. So now I can see the rate, resource utilization rate for these 2 quarters and only for these particular people. And I can see whose rate is higher and when, right? So resource utilization rate was really good for David for December and really weak for David in January. But I can see here, Maxwell has decreasingly had less and less work to do. Maybe I should do something about that or figure out what projects he's assigned to, right? So that's why I was taking a pre-built report that just had a line, turn into a much more better experience to look at, because I wanted to split it by owner, change the visual, and then change the date filter. And it was very, very quick and easy to do, right? So that's how you can kind of work backwards to figure out the information you're looking for. Let's grab something else. Let's look at tasks, right? So tasks are a very, very important piece of information that is inside Zoho Projects. So we can open up the task dashboard. Again, if you don't know what you're looking for, the dashboard is going to have a lot of great information. I can see the task trends, right? So they're actually already on here. So let me see here. So our trend has been, what happened in October? Like right away, I can see the trend is there's a reason to maybe dive deeper into that. Maybe I can then break that down by owner, break it down by project, or break it down by day of the month, because it's all in October. Right, so we can look at creation trend, completion trend, seeing if we're on target, so how many tasks versus how many actually got closed, right? So you can see generally we are closing most of our tasks every single month. Maybe you want to look into October and September. Clearly there were some delays there. I can drill down further and further into that report. So that's what we mean when we're looking at trends. So we've compared projects, we've looked at rates, we look at trends. Next thing is, let's look for top performers. You can already see we've done the bottom 5. You can even see top 5. So we've done like top 10 tasks, top 5 project members, and you can again pull up that report. Okay, so top 5 project members by billable hours. Edit design. Okay, so what's going on is you're looking for the hours logged in the timesheet. Makes a lot of sense, right? Very, very simple to figure out. Now, I want to break it down, let's say, by date. Let's pick 2018 and 2019. Okay, so what did I do? I grabbed date and put it into color, right? So now the legend has 2 colors. The reason it has 2 colors is because I've only picked 2 parameters, 2018 and 2019, right? If I pick a third parameter, it is going to add a third color on there, right? So now not only do I know my top 5 project members, I can see the status over 3 years and what's going on. Maybe I'm not really getting enough information from just those 3 years. So let's break it down into all of 2019, right? So we add these. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there we go. Boom. All right, so I have to change the here the values. It's still only looking for the year regardless of the quarter. So I changed it to the quarter before I'm choosing the quarter here. So now it is looking for a quarter and the date filter is on the quarter. And now I can see for just 2019, okay? So this is what I mean, like you pull up the chart and you continuously dig further and further into it to help you kind of dictate, and forecast future projects, current projects, past projects, etc. So that's how you find top performers. You can now also see, if I go to filters, do you see this here, top 5, bottom 5, top 10? So we already have this. This is called a relative range. We've already done this for you, right? If it's smart enough to figure out what you might be looking for. So of course there's individual values. That makes sense when you're looking at owners, but maybe not at numbers. So maybe with numbers, you want ranges. So it's gonna have that there for you. You can add your own ranges. It's gonna have top 5 and top 10, bottom 10, and the percentage as well. Okay, so if you wanna add more, like top 20, so simple, right? You can just put that in there and you have that filter. So I can look at top 5 and bottom 5, right? So it will include those. Or I can say exclude these. So you have the ability to really, really dig deeper into these relative ranges. And you see if it's not a number field, you won't see relative ranges, right? When it's a date field, you will see relative ranges, but in terms of a date, right? Date, weeks, months, years, or a start date and an end date, okay? And if you add, again, a start date and an end date, you can say exclude. So you can say, I want to know 2019, but exclude, so you just change this to exclude items and put the range January 1st to January 31st. Maybe you just want to exclude those particular dates. So make sure you take advantage of that relative function as well, okay? So we've done comparing rates, trends, top performers, and let's dive into our last piece here, which is the budget. Okay, so let's kind of close down some of our windows here. All right. There we go. All right, so our portfolio dashboard. So our portfolio dashboard is basically the one that's all about the money and the revenue. So very, very important for those who have projects that need to be tracked by billable hours, right? So again, this is a lot of pre-made calculations for you, and you can reverse engineer it. But these first two reports I wanted to point out because I really think they're quite useful. So on this one, on a per project level, you can see that we're comparing the actual cost, the planned cost, and the projected cost against the total budget. So I can see total budget $750,000. Actual cost $497. And so really quickly from this, I can see that our actual costs are generally always lower than our budget. That's great news, right? If you want more information, you can open up this chart and dive deeper. As I showed you how you can edit, right? So you can filter it to one project and maybe edit this further and get more information. This other one I also like a lot. In this one, it breaks down your project by different roles. So the roles that you've created in Zoho Projects will all transfer over here. And you can see billable amount by the role. So if you have 5, 6 different roles, who is basically billing the most amount of hours? And then I want to color code those ranges. So right away, I know the people in orange and purple were spending, they have higher billable amounts than the guys in green, right? So sorry, in turquoise, the ones in green are going to be the highest. So this chart is very useful because you're color coding ranges, and then you're able to put up a set of roles against a set of projects, or you can put up a set of project managers. Like they could all be project managers, and you can put each manager separately and then see how they're being utilized across different projects or across different months, etc. So if we go to edit design here, we go back to kind of reverse engineering everything, right? So I can open up this particular report and I can start editing it. I can add additional reports to this dashboard, etc. So if I find something I want more information about, the title of the report is given to you right here, right? Project-wise budget report new. So you can go to report here and you can just search for it and find that report. Once you find it, it'll open in a new tab and you can edit it. After you edit it and make changes, you can refresh it here and it'll be the one that's more customized to you. Okay. Another thing that we can do with Zoho Projects is Zia. Zia makes your life a lot easier because I know this is a lot of stuff to take on at once. So if you're just looking for the project budget and you're not sure where to find it, you know project budget is a field, right? So you type it in there. All right, well, we want amount. And it even asks you, how do you want to filter it? Well, cool, I'll do it with a project name. Zia will build the report for you, okay? There's your project budget amount by project name. So I've now simplified everything that I taught you. You can just type it in plain English and it will actually tell you what it did exactly, right? And you can edit that report and it will actually let you see what tables the information was gathered from and what the field names are. If I want to look at tasks, right? Open tasks. Well, I want to see percentage or all. Open task count. Let's do it by month, right? So let's say just by created time. And also I want to break it down by the owner. And I want to see it as a bar chart. Oops, I added too many. There we go. Okay, that one I don't like, right? It's got a little bit too much. Maybe let's take out owner. Boom. Okay, so now we have a report. Open it up, right? And now I can, again, reverse engineer this to make it look the way I want it to look. So, you know, we do want the owner there, but there's just too big of a date range, right? So we know created time, so let's go to filter and do created time. Maybe you just want to see October. There you go. Right. And then I actually want to see the number of tasks. You see this open tasks count? I can add it to text. Right now it actually tells me at the top what the number is. Simple as that. And you know, so I was able to use Zia to do a query without any knowledge of where the data was, find the data thanks to the autofill, bring it over and reverse engineer a chart and get the information I need. I can save it, put it on the dashboard, okay? And one last thing, because you might do projects for clients, right? Because we've kind of been focusing on internal projects here. There is a client-wide analysis chart already made for you that will let you pick all of your different vendors and different, customers and projects, and it will give you the information broken down by client, okay? And again, so now that this pivot table is already created, I know where the data is coming from because again, I can edit the design. So I can see milestone completion rate, I can see overdue tasks, estimated hours. You know what I really care about? I care about how much money is being spent. So I can go into the budgeting table and I want to know actual cost. Yeah, I'd like to see the milestone completion and everything. So I don't want to remove any of that, but I just want to see in the data the actual cost per client. I just added it and boom. So for client A, we did, as we see, 6 projects. This is the cost of each project. We've spent $1.2 million on client A. We spent 1.1 on client B. So again, didn't have to do anything, just grabbed an existing table called client-wise analysis and just add the stuff that you want on the analysis and remove the ones you don't, right? I can sit here and just X out all of these other things and make a nice simple pivot table and save it, okay? It's as simple as that. So that's kind of how you start getting used to using the analytics piece of Zoho Projects. But you can see that you can get all the information that you're looking for, and if it's hidden away, just use Zia and try to search for it through the system, and it will allow you to know what tables are being pulled, and you can always use the data map to figure out how the tables are joined. If you want to go further on this, you can more than welcome to request a demo. We can go over things like SQL queries, building your own tables, or can you show me how to run this report? And that's something our support team or myself can handle for you. So when we move into this last slide here, we're going to open up a survey for you. And in that survey, just let us know what you're looking for as you get started on this journey between projects and analytics. and we're more than happy to assist you to get to where you need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and send this on the chat to everybody. All right, and now that we are at the end of the project, someone asked, timelines or Gantt-like data visuals in analytics. Just be transparent here. I don't actually know if that feature is coming, but I'm more than happy to find out for you. As of today, it will be only available in Zoho Projects, but as a future enhancement, I'll definitely look into that and let you know. I'll ask you for your email address, and I'll email you back once I get that answer. Okay. So I know we went a little bit over time, but if you have some questions, I'll stay on for an additional 5 minutes, so until 2:10 CST. Otherwise, thank you for joining. I know it's a lot of information, but there will be a recording that will be passed to you. And again, you can see that if you just open up the samples and just go backwards, it's a lot easier to learn than trying to look at the videos of the user guide. So thanks again for joining, and have a great weekend. Thank you. Bye.